We're keeping our focus this morning, the fight against corruption. How well have these government or previous governments done in trying to see that corruption is rooted out? Let's quickly go to Malpe and Ajuri in Abuja to start this.
Well, thank you, Gimba. Joining us right now. Yes, you saw the wrong picture there. It was the right name, but the wrong picture for Ilemona Onoja, who is at my far right. He's a legal practitioner and, I say, a member of the People's Democratic Party. Are you? You're welcome to Sunrise Daily. And we also have with us Ismail Ahmed, who is Senior Special Assistant to the President on Social Investment Programs in the Office of the Vice President. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily.
Thank you.
Well, you gentlemen, I'm sure you must have heard the controversy that followed shortly after the VP had that meeting with members of the private sector. He acknowledged, he talked about this administration's strides in the fight against corruption and said, no, we have not been able to completely eradicate corruption, but we're working on it. Let me first of all ask your own impression, Mr. Onoja. What do you think? Do you think that they are making as much progress as you'd love to see in the fight against corruption?
The answer is very straightforward. It's not. It's very straightforward. Over the last couple of years, over the last 3 years, we've seen quite a lot of conversation around a fight against corruption. It has been an issue that the approach of government has been one where there's been the repeat of rhetorics, you know, a thumbing down on the statement, a continuous restatement of we're fighting corruption, we're fighting corruption, we're fighting corruption. But the facts and the indices do not support that conclusion.
Why do you say so? Because
I'll refer to two things, yes. Two things specifically. One, there was the anti-corruption index, the corruption index from Transparency International, which actually shows that Nigeria had lost points in a rating and had fallen 12 places on a scale of 180 countries, from 136 to 148.
Yeah, there's also the argument, just so we put this in perspective, that the number of countries that were rated the previous year are quite different from the number of countries that were rated
same 180
this
countries.
Year.
Same 180
no,
countries.
not the same 180 countries. I think it was about 160 countries rated the previous
180 countries, 136 out of 180. Okay, but all the same, you're falling down on that ranking. All the same, one. Two, if you listen to the complaints from the Egmont Group, right, it refers to two things. One, that information being released to Nigeria, to the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit, was being used to pursue media trials. Confidential information was being salaciously thrown around, and that the objectives that were supposed to be attained were not being attained. One. Two, the Egmont Group also complained that the EFCC was taking that information, was approaching people who were suspected of being corrupt or engaging in corrupt acts, and then blackmailing them into parting with money and with properties. Now, if we take into further consideration, the continuous exposure of cases of corruption against certain high-ranking members of this government, or we take into consideration the MBS report from 2017 that said that between June 2015 and May 2016, Nigerians had paid more than 400 billion naira in bribes to government officials. You see that this is...
You hear the Vice President say that, you know, if we say that we're going to eradicate corruption in one fell swoop, that it will be impossible, especially where it is systematically entrenched in a country like Nigeria. He goes on to talk about all the other things that the federal government has done, especially in the area of finance. For instance, the Treasury Single Account, which has ensured that the government is able to know where it stands at any point in time. He's talked about a number of other steps that they have taken. You do not see that this, steps are...
Again, I'll go back and I'll say this. Comments like, the approach seems like placing plaster on a cancerous wound. And I'll explain.
TSA is plaster?
I'll explain. The government itself, the TSA, I don't think that government should lay claim to this TSA solely. It predates the government. The design, the implementation thereof predates the government. It was already in place. In terms of fighting corruption, and this is something that
I have to take you up on that, because if you say that the TSA is being implemented before this
it
government,
was already been implemented.
I want you to explain how it was implemented.
Certain ministries, certain MDAs, certain departments of government were already being compelled to comply with TSA.
There's a difference between being compelled and actually enforcing that.
This is a compulsion, even with this government. Even with this government. And then remember that not all government accounts are with the TSA. There are certain NNPC accounts which hold billions of dollars worth of money, which are excluded. And that's where the real cesspit of corruption is. Most of the allegations of corruption against any government emanate from the NNPC. So if we have perhaps Nigeria's biggest pool of resources, biggest pool of foreign exchange, right, excluded from the TSA, inexplicably, and that was only disclosed in very